Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name's Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the space help bring you value. And on this episode, we're joined by Charles Hoskinson, who, as he would put it, is joining us live from warm and sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. And for those who have spent any time in the crypto space at all, Charles needs no introduction. But for the rest of our audience, Charles is perhaps best known as a blockchain pioneer who co-founded Ethereum and founded Cardano. Charles transitioned from mathematician to technology entrepreneur when he realized his interest in emerging technology to give economic identity to those who don't have it outweighed his interest in sitting in a basement yelling at a chalkboard over an unsolvable equation. Charles, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Gosh, it's so great to see you guys, and thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I love the Colorado hat.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that wore that for you. And there's so much that we want to talk to you about, but let's start off from the beginning of your introduction to crypto and then what eventually led to the founding of Cardano in September 2017. Can you walk our viewers through that journey?
Yeah, so you know, when I was in pre-crypto land, I was trying to figure out what to do with life, and I was looking at a reality where I could either become a doctor or a professor, and so I started going down the professor route a little bit and thinking about, you know, how to do the PhD, how to get a postdoc, where to politically position myself so I have the best chance of a tenure track position. And I was like, wow, this is really dreary. I live in politics and bureaucracy for 10 to 20 years. And then maybe in my 40s, I'm in a position where I've published enough and I'm prestigious enough where I can kind of claw and scrape my job at a decent institution. And I have graduate students and I do these things, but there's really nothing I'm doing outside of thinking about interesting stuff, but I'm having no real impact on the world. And that's kind of sad. And then I say, well, maybe I could do applied stuff. And okay, you could do applied math. And there's certainly some interesting things there, but I was really lost. And at the same time, I was getting really political. You know, I joined the Ron Paul movement and I became a gold bug and started thinking a lot about monetary policy. I was like so angry at the 2008 Wall Street issues. I was just filled with rage. Like, hey, none of these people went to jail. We elected a guy whose like middle name is Hussein. That's as out there as you can get for the American people. And we still weren't able with a supermajority to get rid of all these banksters. Instead, they got hundreds of millions of dollars and they got to ride off into the sunset off of our backs. And then I saw a lot of injustices happen. Like, I'll never forget this. I used to live in Virginia, and I would go into this diner all the time, and this Mexican gal would serve me. And at one time, her husband came in, and they started speaking Spanish, and then she was in tears. And I asked her what happened, and she said her husband was a drywaller, and he had just finished a huge job, and they got paid cash, got pulled over by a police officer, and the officer said, "Oh, that's drug money." Just took the money, civil asset forfeiture. And I was like, this is America. Police officers just don't steal your money. So, well, they did. And they were undocumented immigrants. They really couldn't do anything about it. They have no recourse. So he wasn't arrested or anything, just pulled over, took the money. And I looked it up. It's like billions of dollars every year is taken this way through civil asset forfeiture. So at right around the same time, I was reading this biography of a guy named Norman Borlaug. You guys know about Norman? You ever heard of him?
I haven't.
Exactly. He's one of these guys that no one's ever heard about, but he saved 1 billion lives. Not million, billion people. So he was an agricultural engineer, and he went around the whole world, and he taught people how to grow crops properly. And those improvements in farming over the course of his life prevented 1 billion people from starving to death. Wow. So I was like, okay, our economics suck. Our government's not going to change itself. It's gotten so bad that in America, the police are stealing money from people, and they think that's legitimate and justified. And one guy can go and change the lives of 1 billion people. in this case, saved their life. Like, I should do something. So the cryptocurrency space started frothing up, and I'd read the white paper and these things, and I traded Bitcoin and mined it and did all. I have an Xbox that's worth $4 million worth of Bitcoin. You know, I can't throw it away because of that. It's just like there's just no reality when it's going away. It sits in the closet. Build a little altar to it. You know, maybe I can make it an NFT and sell it. Who knows? Maybe we'll actually get some money back. If Homer Pepe can sell for $300,000. So anyway, I was going through this whole experience, and I said, you know, it'd be really cool to focus on that full time instead of just working a dreary job or, you know, going in this grind. But I didn't know anybody. I didn't know how to do anything. So I talked to an old professor of mine, Carl Gustafson, and he said, Charles, those who cannot do, teach. And I said, Carl, that's a great idea. Very profound. What fortune cookie did you find that in? So I said, fuck, all right, I'll go teach. And so I created a class on Udemy called Bitcoin, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Crypto. And I ended up getting over 70,000 students and over 5,000 emails. And some of them were like, Roger Ver emailed me. I talked to Andreas Antonopoulos, Eric Voorhees. And back then, nobody was like a big guy. So you could email these people. There was no egos and there was no money. And one of my students was this crazy Chinese guy named Li Shailao. And he's like, I like the cut of your jib. I want to give you money. And I was like, woo, this is like a Chinese version of the Nigerian prince scam. And he's like, no, I'm serious. I'll just give you money. And I was like, how much? He's like, $500,000. I was like, for what? He's like, start a business. You'll make me money. Don't worry about it. I was like, okay, Lee, that's not exactly how we do things in the United States, but shit, let's do it. So I did. I started a business named Invictus Innovations, and we created a product called BitShares. Ironically, I was working with, of all people, Dan Larimer on that. I met him through Bitcoin Talk. It's one of those things like sometimes the Tinder date doesn't work out. So I took the buyout, and and I was like, okay, I need to do something else. And I through Anthony Diorio met Vitalik, and I was at Ethereum for about 6 months, and that didn't work out. So I was 0-2, and I was really angry. And I was like, I'm so bad at being an entrepreneur. Screw all these people. I'm just going to go back into mathematics or become an alcoholic and live under a bridge or something. I don't know. You know, those homeless people look pretty happy. Maybe I should do that for a bit. So I was really angry at the whole world because I'd spent a whole year trying to be an entrepreneur, and I was not really getting a lot of traction. So I got invited to do a TED Talk in Bermuda, and I said, oh, that's perfect. I'll just do a TED Talk. I'll tell the world why this space is important. And then I'll go home, and that's my last say. So I did the TED Talk, and then these guys in Japan reached out to me after I did it, and they said, we want you to do the Ethereum of Japan. And I was like, all right, if you buy me a plane ticket and fly me out to Osaka, I'll live there for a little bit. We'll talk about it. Why not? I like sushi. It'll be fun. So I flew out to Osaka. I lived there in this really, really shitty Airbnb. It was the first time in my life I got a gout attack because I suffer from gout. And I was on the 14th floor of this very tiny one elevator apartment building. And the day I got the gout attack, the elevator broke. So I had, with the gout attack, to have to go down like 13 flights of stairs, and up 13 flights of stairs for 2 weeks. And as a Gaijin, medical care for me was not so good. I didn't have any money anyway because I was staying in a shitty Airbnb, right? So that was fun. And these guys were really wild. They were the rough people of Japan, the kind that you don't talk about. But they had big hearts, and I learned a lot in a very short period of time. And it got down to, okay, if you guys can raise money and here's how it needs to be done, I'll start an engineering and science company. And, basically I have this unused roadmap for all the things I wanted to do in the space. And here's what I think Cardano should be, and so forth. And they said, sure. And I said, okay. So we set up a foundation, and they set up their company, which became Emergo. And I set up my company, IOHK. And I focused on protocol development. And I went and hired all these scientists, over 25 of them, and built all these research labs from like Tokyo Tech to Edinburgh and so forth. And we wrote 102 papers and 10,000 citations. And we still have more in the queue. And then we hired all these engineers, and we spent years writing code. And in 2017, we released the first version of Cardano. It was an overwhelming success, an overnight success. And we got this huge community, and we stuck with it. And for 4 years of AMAs and coding and 52 countries of travel, it's grown to almost 1 million people in the ecosystem, and a lot of fans, a lot of tattoos. And now we just recently released Shelly. Recently released multi-asset. I think over 600 assets have been issued in Cardano, and smart contracts are coming. And it's just been the privilege of a lifetime to to go from that all the way to having this amazing ecosystem. And we really do get to think about some of the hardest problems in the world. And now we have offices in Ethiopia and Addis Ababa, and we have offices in Georgia, the country of Georgia, and we do business in Mongolia. And we actually get to talk to people who they live on $1 a day. They can't get a loan. They can't get money sent to them. And it's not academic. It's a real concern. And we actually get to have a legitimate conversation about how do we solve that? How do we build a system for that on the hardware and software side and infrastructure side? So it's been an amazing 8 years. And it's just been the privilege of a lifetime to know so many people, touch so many lives, and have these experiences. I never thought creating that free class, it would lead to all of this. But it was definitely the right decision, and I'm so happy to be here.
We want to dive deep into all things Cardano, but before we do that, you mentioned Ethereum there. You also mentioned the Xbox that's worth that should have its own shrine. Is it true? I thought I saw in an interview that you, as one of the co-founders, were given rights to some sort of like 290,000 Ethereum or something along those lines, and you gave that to your secretary. What's the story?
I did. Yeah. So what happened? I left in June. I was really pissed off. Depending on who you ask, I was fired or I quit or both. It's like, you can't fire me. I quit, you bastards. But basically, what happened was that there was a philosophical decision that had to be made whether Ethereum was going to be a for-profit company with venture capital, and we'd go build a protocol, create a not-for-profit, and release it through that. But all the risk capital would be paid for by smart money, or they just go and do the foundation and release the protocol and hope for the best. My problem with the latter approach and just doing the ICO was, first, there was no incentive for the founders to stick around. There were 8 of them. Now today, 7 of the 8 are gone. The only one who's still there is Vitalik. So I was right about that. Second, you're paying everybody up front. So they have no incentive for delivery. And I was like, guys, that's not how you do. You don't just give your plumber all the money up front. I mean, they're probably not going to fix your toilet. So I thought that model for sure was going to run out of money. And they almost did. They raised 18 million. By the time they launched Ethereum, there was only $500,000 left. First, because of poor treasury management, they raised Bitcoin to like $600, and they didn't divest it till 250. So they lost like half of their money just from market. And then they wasted a lot of money trying to bring that product to market. Yeah, because it's hard, and they didn't have a lot of adult supervision to help them balance things and founders agreements and these types of things. So it was a governance nightmare. Now, there's 3 books written about the damn thing, and depending on who you ask, they said I was a narcissist and a sociopath and a raving lunatic and just claiming to be Satoshi and all these things. It's like, what fucking fantasy island do you guys live on? I want those drugs. They're good.
Hey, they got to sell those books somehow.
I know, right? I was like, okay, guys, if that's the way you want to go, that's great. Tell me when the movie, and maybe Justin Timberlake can play me. So it was just a mess. And to Vitalik's credit, he pulled off a miracle. It was like when Tom Brady had that amazing Super Bowl comeback. We're just like, okay, I guess he did it. And so he did, and Ethereum grew by leaps and bounds. And it was one of those things where everything I predicted happened. But despite those predictions, they overcame it and succeeded. So mega kudos and credit to them. My secretary, he stayed on a little longer than me, and he left his Japan to live with us in Switzerland. And then he went to Germany, and they kind of screwed him. And they're like, yeah, give us all this dirt on Charles. And he's like, go fuck yourself. And so they said, all right, well, we'll just fire you. So then he went back to Japan after 9 months. His credit cards were maxed out with expenses from that company. His girlfriend nearly left him. He quit his job to be there, guys. And so I said, that's so fucked up. Now, remember, at the time, Ether hadn't launched. It wasn't worth anything. So I said, well, how much Ether am I allocated? They said 293,000. I said, well, even if it's worth $1, that's enough to buy a house or have a nest egg. You just take it. And, whatever it's worth, and best of luck. So I gave him all of my Ether. And I, to this day, I don't regret it. I don't look back. I mean, I think at the all-time high, it would have been worth like $500 million or something like that. And it seems like a lot of money, and it is, but I am a billionaire now, so it's like my whole career that I've been in this space has been give and you shall receive. I gave the course away. My dad thought I was nuts when I told him. I was at his house drinking coffee, and he's like, so what are you doing? I said, I'm dropping out of everything. and I'm going to go do education for magic internet money. And my business model is to give the class away for free. And he's like, okay, so what bridge do you want to live under? And I said, no, trust me, it's all going to work out. You give and you shall receive. And I did. And I got the VC investment to start my first company. And then I gave all that ether away. And, that same secretary hooked me up in Japan and got that whole thing done. And now we have Cardano, and it's worth $33 billion, and it's just an extraordinary journey. I at one time had over 50,000 Bitcoin, and I gave a lot of it away, and I sold a little bit of it. I lost some on Mt. Gox. There's still a hard drive floating around somewhere that probably has a few thousand Bitcoin, and I can't remember how to get access to it. It's like little stuff like that. So I put it in a safety deposit box, and I'll come back to it at some point. It's a pretty good form of cold storage. So there's stuff like that in my career, and that's okay. I don't recommend this as sound business planning, but it's just one of those things that's worked for me. It's almost like a Forrest Gump-esque experience where you meet Bubba and bad stuff happens, but at least you get a shrimp company out of it.
Hey, there's a book called, I think, From Me to We. And it's kind of about that, if like focus on giving and you will get things in return, X-fold. So there you go. I guess maybe you're just living testament to that sort of methodology.
And what's so crazy? All the things we do in my company are open source. This space is so tribal and so toxic at times. And so let me get this straight. The longer I stay in business, the more patent-free open source papers we write, which by the way, Polkadot uses our stuff. Their consensus algorithms based on ours. It's like, okay, we were the first to pay for the EVM to be formalized with the KEVM and these types of things. So, the longer we stay in business, the more that we do, the more open source code we write. Isn't that good for everybody? We're giving all that to the world to do something, but no, apparently we're, monsters and horrible human beings. I don't get the tribalism. And I guess it's like the most toxic stuff in sports combined with the fact that people have financial incentives. But the things that are said and done are just outrageous in any other industry. I've never been in an industry where you disagree with somebody and therefore that person's evil outside of politics. That's pretty much the only thing I can think that has a moral equivalency there. And in many cases, this industry goes much further. My house has been robbed. I had somebody mail an envelope full of white powder to me, and the note said it's anthrax. It turns out it was just fake substance, but they just wanted to get a scare out of me. I've been yelled at. I've been to conferences where people said "fuck off, scammer" and threw stuff at me. I just can't believe that people treat people this way and have these opinions and so forth, especially people they've never met or interacted with and have no relationship with, and they don't actually know the backstory. I was speaking at a students group in Edinburgh, Scotland, not too long ago through Zoom. And one of the students said, "Oh, you're being very dishonest about the founding of Ethereum." And I was like, "Excuse me?" It's like, it was not a project of an accidental project. And he started lecturing me. I was like, "Excuse me, were you in the meetings? Were you there?" I was there in the beginning. You're like some 21-year-old kid in Scotland who read something, and now you're claiming that we just started Ethereum to steal money from people in Bitcoin because you're a Bitcoin maximalist. You believe this? Those meetings were recorded. We still have those Skype archives from those meetings. It's like we were just like, hey, maybe this will work. Maybe this won't work. Maybe we'll raise $500,000 or $1 million. Smart contracts are cool. It's a damn shame that Ethereum doesn't have it. And it's just, this kid absolutely believed 100% to the deep down of his soul that our convictions and why we built the project the way we built and so forth. I said, son, if we were trying to steal from people, we would have probably been a little better at it. And we probably would have had like better contracts and these types of things, right? We fucked everything up with the founding of that thing. That's why 7 of the 8 founders aren't around anymore. Come on. It's like, come on, man. It's like, so that's the thing that just blows me away about this industry. I never think I'm going to understand it.
I think it goes beyond the industry into the internet as a whole, and the fact that this industry lives on the internet. But, it's like conspiracy theorists. It all comes down to things they find, rabbit holes they go down online. They go reading about stuff. They decide what they want to believe is true or false. And then that is now the strongest opinion they have. And they believe it and it's right. But anyways, that said, I'm going to move aside from that because I want to get back to Cardano. You did such a great job telling us about your history and, what led you to, creating Cardano and everything that, even a brief history of the milestones along the way and where we are today and where we're going. But if we can dive in a little bit more specifically into the 5 eras of Cardano, and what has been completed so far. So what they are, what's been completed so far, what's coming up on the roadmap. I think that would be really great for our listeners to kind of get a better picture of Cardano as a whole.
Yeah, okay. So, they're presented in a linear order, but they were always meant to be kind of like a graph. So we work on them in parallel and you make progress. It's almost like, did you guys ever play Civilization, that series?
I did. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, remember Beyond Earth, where instead of the tech tree being like a linear spectrum, it's in all circles, so you can kind of just go from set. Yeah, that's basically what Cardano is. So each of those are kind of like their own tentacles, and they spring out, and we make progress. So the starting point, the center was Byron, and that was just release something, and that was a static and federated system, and the point of it was to distribute lots of full nodes and bootstrap an entire environment and build a community and get liquidity for that community, so that would encourage people to actually want to run and operate the system and agree with the philosophy. So that ARR ran for a while, a little bit too long. My hope was actually to get the next year Shelley out in 2018, 2019, but we had so many delays due to a variety of learning how to write software well. And also we chose very risky approaches that we thought would take months and turned out to take years in some cases. And that's my fault. And Shelley was the next major step where we turned it from a static and federated system to a dynamic and decentralized system. And then the community runs the whole show. And now there's almost 2,000 stake pool operators, which makes us actually one of the most, if not the most decentralized cryptocurrencies around. And it actually shows you the power of Ouroboros, the proof of stake protocol we constructed for Cardano, which, by the way, is an artifact of 6 years of research in like a dozen papers and major academic conferences and so forth. So it was non-trivial to do all of that. And despite the fact that Ethereum worked on that problem a year longer than we did, they started in, I think, 2014. We started in 2015 for proof of stake. We beat them to market by over a year for it, which is just great. So Shelley was all about just get that out and turn over the operation of the entire system to the community. And that's a super technical, super complex thing because it's like changing the tires on a car while driving. We see that with the F to F2 upgrade. They're going from proof of work to proof of stake. Anytime you do a consensus change, it's horrendously involved. But we also figured out how to do that smoothly. We invented something called the hard fork combinator. So like doing upgrades is super easy. So we had to build out a lot of capacity. We got government grants from the European Union to study how to do decentralized software updates. We built a whole voting system to do these things. We had to build a CIP process and build up a governance structure for Cardano. It was enormously involved. Then when the tentacles come out, they're all kind of different tentacles. So one is Goguen, and that's all about saying, okay, you want to go from just dynamic and decentralized to dynamic and decentralized and useful. You want utility. You need to be more than just pushing value around like Bitcoin does. You actually want to have smart contracts and metadata and the ability to issue assets and so forth. Well, the research agenda there was over 4 years. So I went to the best guy I could find, Philip Wadler. He created the Haskell programming language, and he did all this crazy stuff through his career. It's 25,000 citations. He's a legendary academic. And I said, Phil, you ever heard of smart contracts? And he said, no, but that sounds fun. And I said, okay, perfect. First principles, let's figure this shit out. So Phil, we built a beautiful team around him, and we got all these people, and we started thinking about everything from accounting models, like Bitcoin has UTXO, Ethereum has an account style model, to metering. So how do you do gas? How do you calculate things to, determinism versus non-determinism? How do you get oracles and insert data into a system? And it was like an all-you-can-eat buffet of different PL topics that unfortunately were just surrounded broken windows. So what happened was that in the cryptocurrency space, when we started, almost all of this stuff, the scripting stuff, was done ad hoc. So some developer would pick his favorite language, maybe JavaScript or maybe, Forth in the case of Bitcoin, and be like, oh, okay, this is the way to do it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, well, you're fucked. And we'll spend the next 2 years figuring out how to maybe make it a little bit better, but most of the mistakes because of backwards compatibility you have to live with. And I said, that's a horrendously bad idea. And it just validator after validator, from DeFi scam to Ponzi scheme to DAO hack and these things, or the parity bug, would demonstrate that. But, like the little engine could, the industry kept pushing on. So we spent 4 years working on the perfect programming model. And we termed this to be the island, the ocean, and the pond. And so the pond is the Cambrian evolution pit, almost like a Zerg spawning pit, that Vitalik instantiated with Ethereum. And basically that's just all about like, hey, there's this thing and there's 3,800 dApps in it, and people may not want to rewrite their infrastructure. Great. Be compatible with that. It's not hard. So we went to University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and we talked to the guy who worked for DARPA and NASA and make sure the Boeing planes don't fall out of the sky. And sometimes he gets it right and sometimes he gets it wrong. And basically we said, RV, you go figure out how Ethereum works. And then, oh, by the way, we're just going to go be core developers for Ethereum, but I can't write code for Vitalik. I just can't. So let's go do Ethereum Classic. But by the way, because it's a carbon copy of Ethereum, by building a Scala version of Ethereum, we actually know how every dimension of Ethereum works. So we built a full Ethereum node with Scala, and we went and did the work with UIUC, and we now know the entire Ethereum model better than everybody outside of the Ethereum Foundation, because we're core developers. We actually wrote an EVM by hand. We wrote formal semantics for the EVM. We built a full node. At one time was even compatible with the Ethereum network. There's not many companies that have that domain expertise. And, if we were on friendlier terms with that community, they would be, oh, these guys are geniuses. But instead, I'm a horrible guy who says, do you know who I am in this shit? So fuck them. All right. So anyway, so we did Ethereum, and that's the pond. And basically Cardano, the Goguen era, is about getting backward compatibility with that. So as a side chain, that'll run. And if you have an Ethereum app, you can port it over, run it. It's just better, faster, and cheaper. And there's some more functionality there. Then the island is like this Calypso Odyssey thing where you're like Odysseus returning from the Trojan War. And you're like, all right, I'll just take a little bit of a break here in paradise. And basically the island is about saying, okay, if you had an ideal development experience where everything's perfect and amazing and wonderful, what would that look like? And that's what Phil Wadler spent 4 years of his twilight of his career with Manuel Chakravarty and many other people figuring out. So we created the 2 programming languages, Plutus and Marlowe. We created a virtual machine. We did everything. It was a humongous amount of work. And we also created a new accounting model called extended UTXO. So we took what Bitcoin did and we extended it to support smart contracts. And because of that, it's super easy to shard and predict resource consumption and verify things. But we also proved the equivalency of that model to the accounts model. So everything Ethereum can do, that model should be able to do. But it's just better, faster, cheaper, and more deterministic and predictable than crazy gas, terrible Ethereum land. So we went and created that. We built this beautiful island, and it's great. And the 12 people who use that, they're going to be the happiest people in the world. But levity aside, the ocean is really where it's at, right? Everybody wants to have everything. So there are over 25 million developers floating around the world. The vast majority of them program in C, C++, Java, C#, and JavaScript. Okay. And then if you add in Ruby, PHP, Python, you're probably covering 80% of the set of all developers in the world. Okay. So you really need to have a strategy of how the fuck do you get those guys to come and play? There's only 80,000 Solidity developers. And a lot of times, the majority of your application is actually written in a non-smart contract programming language because you're running off-chain. So you really have to solve the on-chain, off-chain side of the world. You have to say, okay, how do I get my server to run and do that in .NET or JVM or Node? And that's how that runs. And then how do I wire that onto my on-chain? And they just play simpatico and they love each other and they're working together very nicely. That's a super hard problem. We thought about it for a long time. And that's what the ocean strategy is about. So we went to the same guy who did the modeling for the KEVM, to formalize Ethereum. And we said, could we build something based on a paradigm we all understand that's been around for a long time and use that as a basis so that we can gradually bring C and C++ and JavaScript and Java and C# for both your off-chain and your on-chain code with predictability and formal methods and all these other things. And he said, Charles, that's probably one of the hardest problems in all of computer science, but I've been happened to be working on it for the last 15 years. So I'd love to play. And I said, okay, that's great. So what he did is he created something called Yella, which is based on LLVM, which is something that Apple created in the early 2000s. And it turns out over 100 languages compile to that. And it's just a beautiful framework. And sure enough, C compiles and C++ compiles and so forth. And so what he's doing with Yella and this crazy framework called K is we're gradually building up this corpus that over time will allow us to bring in the C developers and the C++ developers and so forth. And they use normal libraries for the off-chain stuff, but then they use specialized libraries for the on-chain stuff. And there's a clear way of wiring those two together in kind of like a service-oriented architecture. And it all just works. So that's the ocean, because it'll bring in the rest of the people. And for high assurance, like the plane can't fall out of the sky, you have the island, because you get to use formal methods in Haskell and these types of things. And if you're like a script kiddie and you love Hellraiser, it's your favorite movie, you could go play with Pinhead in the pond, write Solidity code, these types of things. Okay, so that's Goguen. And we've been working on that for 4 years, and we've shipped 2 of the 3 major updates for it as HFT events. The first brought in metadata and token locking. We just with Mary this month brought in multi-asset, so you can issue native tokens. And then the Lonzo is coming, and we'll have some announcements about that soon, about dates. And that brings in full smart contract capabilities. Okay. Now, the other thing is tokens. People love issuing assets, whether they be NFTs or they be security tokens or whatever. The whole ERC20 thing is a fucking mess. If I issue a token, why in God's name do I pay the transaction fee in the token in the underlying asset, Ether or ADA or these? That makes no sense. If you have a stable coin, the whole point of a stable coin is that it's not volatile. If you have unpredictable transaction costs, then you've defeated the purpose of the asset. Sorry, Bob, I can't give you the money today because it'll cost you $500 to send this $20 transaction. Maybe if we wait a month, it'll be cheaper. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's like, come on. So we created something called Babel transactions and the native asset standard. And basically the idea is that when you issue an asset on Cardano, over time, we can create marketplaces and your transaction fees could be paid in the underlying asset instead of ADA or another asset like Ether or something like that. So given that, the scalability demands the fact that these tokens can be treated as first-class citizens, not as a smart contract, and they have access to all the metadata stuff and the locking mechanics and the multi-sig mechanics we built, as well as the governance mechanics and so forth, which we'll get to in a bit. We think we have a much more competitive token stack. So we have a superset programming model. So everything you do with Ethereum, we do, but more. You have a path to mainstream languages, and then you have this mythical island you can live on if you're elite enough to get there, and that gives you magic and makes you live forever, and beautiful women will like you. That whole thing. So that's great. That's Goguen, and we've been working on it for a while. Now I got Basho and I got Voltaire. So Basho is all about how the fuck we do this at scale. How do you go from thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands to millions to billions? So we created something called Hydra. And what we did is we said, look, Lightning's a good idea. Plasma's a good idea. The problem is that those are bolt-ons. They weren't designed around the accounting model and the consensus algorithm. So if you get the same people in the room who are doing the smart contracts, doing the accounting model, and doing the consensus research, and have them design the layer 2 solution for state and payment channels, they're going to be able to build something that's hand in glove and seamless. And it does all the things you're supposed to do with Lightning and Plasma, but it actually works. Go figure. And by the way, I have 2,000 stake pools. That means I have 2,000 channels that can run in parallel, and they're truly parallel. And there's a way to shard and go on chain and off chain gracefully, which means that you'll have unlimited throughput for microtransactions and transaction batching and so forth. So we published the first paper about that Hydra. And this month we spooled up the team for it. And throughout the whole year, we'll be building a prototype. And basically at some point when we need it, we can bring it into the network and the stake pool operators run it. And as we get more decentralized, meaning more operators running the system, you get more channels, which means you get more throughput and you can do more stuff with that entire setup. And it's just beautifully designed. So Hydra is like one of the crown gems of scalability. We also look at other things like how do you shard the base ledger? If we wanted to go down that way, we can. We wrote a paper called Parallel Chains and Ledger Redux. And so we kind of know how to do that. And eventually we're going to roll that up and release a protocol called Ouroboros Omega for that. But it's not necessary. The base layer has enough throughput that even with crazy growth, we're good for this year and the next year, and Hydra will get us where we need to go. And then the other part of Bosch is interoperability. So how do you have side chains? And that's really about how do you communicate with proof of work systems and proof of stake systems and permission ledgers. So we joined the Hyperledger Alliance, and we talk to those guys and we have great ideas there. We join the W3C. We talk to those guys about Interledger and these things, and we have great ideas there. We also created the first sidechains protocol for proof of work. Blockstream actually wrote it down, but they never actually did the hard math work. We did. We created something called the NPPow, non-interactive proof of work, and that became Fly Client and all these other protocols. And basically, we figured out how to do succinct proofs to move stuff in proof of work systems. And at some point, maybe Litecoin will support that in other systems, and eventually it'll work its way to Bitcoin in 5 or 10 years. And then on the proof of stake side, we wrote a whole paper on basically how to do that. So there's a protocol for moving information, value, and users between systems alongside identity. The Voltaire side is the hardest part. When you go and say, let's write a programming language, we've been doing that for a while. We know how to do that. Go write a consensus protocol. Does Google exist? Yes. Okay. So millions of computers are talking to each other with billions of users. Okay. So scale in that's, we know how to do that. Great. Voltaire is about governance. And really, this is the missing manual for the cryptocurrency space. The problem with Bitcoin is it's a victim of its own success. So basically, Bitcoin's in this horrible situation where it can't evolve anymore. How do you, for example, everybody in Bitcoin space says, hey, these smart contract things are a pretty good idea. Okay, so how do we upgrade Bitcoin script to actually be a useful language to program in? Can't be done. They say schnorr-sigs, or upgrading the cryptographic primitives so we can get better constructs in the system are a really good idea. Yes, sure. Yeah, every cryptographer would agree that the ECDSA is not the way to go. Let's do something else. Well, can't upgrade. Finality. It takes 60 minutes. Best case scenario to get enough confirmations to know your transaction is settled. You're going to wait at an ATM for an hour? You're going to wait at a cash register for an hour? No. But it's just too Lightning. And by the way, they can't even upgrade it to make the system easier for Lightning. I mean, I played this game, guys. I was first in the Bitcoin space, and I had friends in Mastercoin and Colorcoin. And Vitalik played this game too. He was a core developer for Colorcoins. Jeff Wiltshire, one of the founders of Ethereum, was a core developer for Mastercoin. So there was a lot of people who started trying to make Bitcoin better and gave up because it was so hard when it was 100 times smaller, 100 times less valuable back in 2013. So the problem is that when you're totally anarchistic and decentralized, you can't converge to controversial decisions without having a Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin SV or these types of things. Even Ethereum experienced this with Ethereum Classic. So you need some form of on-chain government. So that's what Voltaire is all about. We hired all these amazing people and partnered with people like IdeaScale and so forth. And we said, guys, let's figure this shit out. And now we are in a position where we have a governance sidechain that we do voting on. There's over 16,000 people who participate, and it decides two things: who pays and who decides. It decides how to give away money. So some of the inflation, instead of all of it going to the miners, goes to a decentralized bank account. Turns out under the current funding level, it's $250 million, billion with a B, per year gets granted to the community. How about that? That's a lot of cheddar for you guys to build projects on Cardano. And the community is in total control over who gets that. And it's done in rounds every 6 to 8 weeks. And then we also have a CIP process, and we're building an on-chain governance system. So that hard fork combinator thing that lets us update the thing will be completely under the control of the community over time as the social dynamics level of participation, the meaningful level of participation increases. So that's what Voltaire is about, kind of doing that whole roadmap. And we built some of it with the European Union and IBM Research, guard time through a grant we got through Horizons 2020. We built some with papers we wrote at Lancaster University, and we're building a lot with partners. We're looking at these like governance solutions networks and things like that. It's super complicated topic. So that's Cardano in a nutshell. All those things and more. And the goal is economic identity in the developing world. So you say, well, why are you building this MacGuffin? I want a financial operating system that can serve the 3 billion people who don't have one. That's what I set out to do at my TED Talk in 2014. I said, we need that. And I had a blueprint to get there. And it's been 8 years, and now we're here. And, in a few short months and years, a lot of shit's turning on, and it's already on in many cases. And as we exit this year, we're actually going to be able to do a lot of this stuff. So I'm just like a kid in a candy store. I'm the happiest guy you could talk to because I get to spend the next decade or two of my life using this amazing infrastructure to go and do all these things. And I couldn't be luckier.
Ulf, do you realize that our audience has either been watching or listening to this episode for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? They should probably subscribe.
Yeah, they should subscribe, and they should like and comment and hit that notifications bell.
Oh, and did you tell them about the NFTs?
That's right. We have our own NFT for our OG supporters. This is a way you can support our show, help us bring you continual great content. Information on that is below. That's amazing. And that's such just a perfect deep dive into, for anyone who's ever asked, what is Cardano all about? Yeah. Well, watch that answer and boom, you've got it all right there, packaged nicely. That, something you mentioned earlier in your answer, Charles, had to do with this tribalism. And there is a lot of rhetoric on crypto Twitter and different spaces about, this ETH versus ETH killers, ETH versus Cardano. And one thing I saw you talk about was the fact that an argument that's commonly used is the fact that ETH had a first mover advantage, but you actually see that as a disadvantage. I'm wondering what your thoughts are there in technology, why historically it hasn't always been an advantage to be the first mover in the space.
Okay, so anybody listening, do something for me. Go ahead and boot up your Netscape browser and go to Yahoo and go ahead and search for MySpace and create yourself a nice MySpace account. You can do this on your BlackBerry. And then once you've done that, let me know how it all works out for you. Guys, first mover is brutal in technology. Your monopoly network effect tends not to last too long, usually 3 to 5 years, if that, for most of these products. And the only cases where it survives, like with Amazon or Google, is because they were able to keep up with the brutal pace of innovation. What happens is that you have checkpoints. The interfaces change, the experiences change, the model of computation changes, the business models change, and that's an opportunity to disrupt a monopoly. So for example, this is Microsoft's opportunity to get back in the game. How about this on my desk? It's a HoloLens, augmented reality, right? Okay, so they were king of the roost with Windows, and now Android and iOS are here. It's kicking them in the teeth. Maybe AR comes and this is their chance to get back into the game. Who knows? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But every time an epic like that occurs and you turn the page, those network effects tend to die. So the web browser model changed, the economic model changed, the social media model changed, and now there's new competition. Like Google seems impenetrable with Chrome, but the fastest growing browser is Bats. Brave. They got 50 million customers out of damn near nowhere. I mean, it's impossible to get that kind of so quickly. And it could be 500 million in 2 years or 3 years. So what Ethereum did is it was a proof of concept for a model called smart contracts. And it kind of introduced a DeFi revolution. It kind of introduced all these other concepts, but DeFi is not loyal to Ethereum. Let me get this straight. You write a web application and you say to yourself, well, I just cannot wait to only forever use Amazon Web Services as my vendor. No, it's infrastructure. Every fucking year you're renegotiating and saying, well, those Azure guys are pretty compelling. I might move over. So what is DeFi doing? A lot of these guys are going multi-chain. Second, only 31% of new dApps in 2020 were created on Ethereum. The other 69% were not. So Ethereum has to evolve and grow and change and solve its network problems if it actually wants to stay competitive. Now, some firms like Google and Amazon, they figure it out. Some don't, like Yahoo. They gain all the customer base, but it's unstable and it fades away very quickly. And that's what makes it fun. Now, what I'm bringing to the table is a gateway to bring a completely new class of developer in that's never been here before. Fortune 500 companies through the formal methods where it's not about first to market. It's about the fact that they already control $10 billion, $20 billion of value. And if they fuck it up, they lose that value. So it's more about quality and security and assurance and these types of things, especially in regulated businesses like the financial industry or the healthcare industry and so forth. And then what we bring with our geography is a completely new customer that's completely new to cryptocurrencies. We're bringing millions of people throughout Africa and Eastern Europe and Asia on board who have never held crypto before, but they have an overwhelming appetite for it because of unstable sovereign currencies and capital controls and the fact that they pay 35 to 85% interest for loans and 15% for remittances and so forth. And you look at proto-currencies like M-Pesa spreading like wildfire. It says, wow, this kind of stuff really is appealing. So when DeFi platforms are growing and evolving and becoming multi-chain, they're saying who's cheapest, fastest, and most reliable. Also, who's going to give me the customers that I don't have yet? And we can be part of that multi-chain story. Plus, we have a $250 million a year innovation fund for people to go play around with and try out and use and have fun with and so forth. And we're even building meta languages like Glow, for example, which is our version of Cordova. So you write it in Glow and it works on Ethereum. It'll work on Cardano. And if Bitcoin ever upgrades itself, it'll even work with Bitcoin script. Go figure. So, that's how you beat a network effect. In some cases, you have to be a little patient. Usually it's a regression. So, for example, a collapse. So there was in the 1990s, the dot-com boom and bust. It was an opener for new people to come in. Or it's an ecosystem change or an infrastructure change or an interface change. And then the other thing is that I'm not scared at all about Ethereum. What I'm scared about are the FANGs, Facebook and Amazon and Netflix and Google and Microsoft. And these guys are huge. Like if Microsoft and Google and Apple decide to just get together and say, we're doing crypto, they'll have 3 billion customers and they can pre-install an app on your phone. They control the app store. They can start putting dApps inside Google Play and these other things. How do you compete with that? That's a much bigger existential threat. And the only reason they haven't done is because Facebook got caught with its hand in the cookie jar with Libra. Had that gone through, there would be MS Coin and you'd have a wallet built right into Windows. There would be Google Coin and these types of things. They would have already entered the space because it's too tempting. They can disintermediate all these people who screwed them, and they have billions of dollars of transaction fees they pay every year. And they don't like the banks. They also are in 100+ countries. And they have to deal with counterparty risk and Forex risk and all these local wonky things. They would much rather be in total control over all the rails that their customers have, and they can manage an ecosystem in the billions. So we're basically told by consensus, they have 80,000 developers. Only a third of the new apps are being built on their infrastructure. The totality of the community is probably only a few million people. A lot of these things are phantom projects, like there are 3,800 dApps, but less than 500 of them account for all the transaction volume on Ethereum. The other ones are dead on the system. And the big guys haven't entered the space yet, and regulation's still not clear, especially the DeFi regulation, but they've won, and they have the network effect, and everybody else is gone and done and dead. We call that PT Barnum. That's not real. It's fantasy for the sake of fantasy. And it's something that these people love to talk about because they own it and they like it being at $200 billion. And they want to justify a market cap that's 7 times that of SpaceX. But I don't believe it. And I think there's going to be a lot of booms and busts. And part of it is just knowing where the puck is going to be and knowing where the industry is going to be and how to skate your way there. And if I get it wrong, I'm going to look like a jackass. But if I get it right, I'm going to get the goal. And that's why we invested so heavily in R&D. It's why every word salad of crypto you could mention, from ZK Snarks, the multi-party computation, or something, I got a guy, and that guy's probably the top guy for it, who's written 50 papers. So we kind of know where the tech can go, and we kind of know where to get the network effect, and we know who needs DeFi. It's not the 27-year-old kid living in his mom's basement in Hackensack. It's the guy who wants to raise $100 to buy cows in Senegal. Okay, so let's do that. And you know what? If I get that right and that works, I've created a $100 billion product and a great ecosystem that's tremendously beneficial to humanity. And Ethereum can still coexist with that because we have non-overlapping customer bases. And if I get that really right, I might be the financial operating system for the entire world. Cardano might end up being the thing that billions of people use every day. Great. And you know what? We got a decentralized brain, because we invested very heavily in research centers all around the world. So there's no cult of personality or founder. You don't have to wake up and say, God, can Charles figure this out? No, the 500 graduate students and 200 postdocs and 100 professors that are all these different research centers, they'll get it done because they like academic careers. And we have a giant development base. 12 development companies so far work on Cardano, not just mine. So there's all these different companies writing code, and that's only going to get more diversified over time. And we have a decentralized bank account. I can hate you, and you can still get millions of dollars because I don't control the purse strings. It's controlled by the community. So it's up to you, the value you bring to the table. So I think we have the right philosophy, the right strategy. We know why Bitcoin stalled. We know why how to beat network effect. And there's 20 years of historical analogies to that. And, I think we have a good shot. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. It's an experiment. And I love it. And there's a great community that's chosen to walk this journey with me. They're great because they tattoo their bodies with our logo. That's pretty fucking loyal. Okay. That's
Those are
pretty
loyal fans
devoted.
right there.
This is why when Warren Buffett, I think he invested in Harley Davidson, they said, why would you invest in it? He said, I like it when my customer tattoos the logo on their body. That's a loyal customer. There's probably going to be a high repurchase rate with that person. They're not going to go over and buy a Yamaha bike or something like that, without also paying for the laser surgery and so forth. So if you got a loyal community, you have a high growth rate, you have a technological vision, you have a way of de-risking, you have a way of addressing founder effect, you're truly decentralized, you're going to get more decentralized over time, you've made great bets on technology, and you know what markets you want to play in, and those take 3 to 7 years to develop, but you know how to develop them, and your competitors aren't touching them, even though they have $5.6 trillion of illiquid wealth inside of them. So there's an enormous jackpot there to get access to. Go do it, and let's see what happens. But at least we have a right to exist.
Yeah. Switching gears, I'd love to get your take on NFTs, which are a huge craze right now. We just saw Beeple's art collection go for 69 million, which is just insane. Keep in mind, our audience is oftentimes new to blockchain, new to crypto. And I'm curious how Cardano will handle NFTs and how you maybe explain that to someone who isn't so tech savvy. And is there much of a difference there?
Yeah, I mean, non-fungible tokens. So everybody gets it. I mean, if your grandpa's around, you say, hey, you ever have baseball cards? Yeah, okay, there you go. This kind of a deal. So you take some marker that represents something in the real world or in the digital world, and then you basically say, okay, I'm going to introduce an element of scarcity. So my brother, when he was in medical school, he was a huge, huge fan of Diablo 2. For some reason, he just loved that fucking game. And he spent probably $200 buying an entire item set for his necromancer and closed Battle.net. And he had this really shady deal, had to meet a guy on a channel at midnight and get, they transfer the money and all that stuff. And that's an example of a unique, rare item. There's only a finite amount of them. And, he purchased it and it had use and utility to him, either as a collectible or in this case, it made his necromancer super powerful. So there's nothing new. It's just now what we're doing is we have the way of creating scarcity where we didn't think of it before, like the first tweet of Jack Dorsey. You can now somehow put a frame around that and say, okay, people can own this. Is that truly any different from artwork? If you think about it, I have a Vladimir Kush painting here, but it's not an original, it's a print. It looks exactly like the original. Okay. But there's only 325 that were printed. How do I know that? Because they wrote it on the painting. And this is number 237 out of 325. Okay. So that's the basic concept. And then what you do is you associate it with a token and you have marketplace and people trade it. Now, why are the prices so high? Well, first, because there's too much money in the world. You can't go print $6 trillion and not expect that money is going to get crazy. Okay, that's one dimension of it. Second, new markets have a super hard time pricing things properly. If you doubt me on that, remember the Beanie Baby craze in the 1990s? I had just moved to Colorado from Hawaii, and I was a little kid, and I'm looking around, I was like, why the fuck are people selling Beanie Babies on the side of the street? Is this like a Colorado thing? We don't do this in Hawaii. But when I lived in Hawaii, we had Pogs. Remember Pogs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. I had a Pog collection.
Oh, me
right?
too.
And kids went crazy for that stuff. So, how do we stay competitive? Well, first off, do we have a good system for issuing assets? Yeah, native multi-asset. How about that? Okay. Can we create hierarchies of assets? For example, NFTs that you can securitize. Who the fuck can buy something that's $69 million? Steve Cohen can, but he also can buy the New York Mets. Okay, outside of Cohen, who else can buy that? Not many. But what if you can divide that into 1 billion shares and everybody can own 1/1 of the Picasso or of the Pog or these types? So the layering and securitization of NFTs is really where it's at. So we've looked around at these marketplaces like OpenSea and these other guys, and they're tremendously approachable. The first thing they're saying is, we want people. We want liquidity. Fuck Ethereum. Fuck these guys. We don't care about their network effect. We want customers. So this is all about bringing as many chains, many communities, many producers, many consumers as possible together. So there's some of the easiest marketplaces in the world to do a strategic partnership with and get support. And then what they do is they open their liquidity up, and they don't care if you're paying in ADA or Ether or Bitcoin or whatever the asset happens to be. They just want producers and consumers. They want people creating NFTs and people consuming NFTs and so forth. So part of the strategy is strategic partnership, and we're in discussions with several platforms, and we'll probably create our own NFT marketplace on Cardano just to showcase the whole thing. And there's some candidates that have come to us, like we have a meeting with the Art Tano guys, for example, and that's super easy to scale up. And again, it's not super complex technology. The complexity is not the tech. The complexity is the market dynamics. So how do you price them? Do you have an auction system, a direct buy? Do you want to have a fiat component? Do you want to have a DEX involved in these things? What level of tradability does the thing have? What level of complexity do you want to put in the transfer rights of the asset? Are you going to securitize the asset and be able to do fractional ownership? Do you want a situation where the asset has some sort of use and utility, that people can have? For example, I used to play EVE Online, and we had this concept of blueprints that you can make ships with. And you had legacy blueprints where you could make unlimited ships, and then one-time use blueprints. The legacy ones were for a period of time in the game, and then after that was over, you couldn't get any more of them. So they were super valuable because you could make unlimited ships with them. So people actually treat them like commodities. I would have died to be able to create an investment of that where you can lend them to people for a while and they can use them, and you just get a default revenue stream for letting that out. So what's really cool about NFTs is that you can do a lot of cool stuff with MMORPGs, with these massive online games, these MMOs, where you can actually create an economy in the game. And that economy can result in the creation of real value for people, whether it be buying digital items or licensing things or things like that. Intellectual property is another example. Let's say you run a pharmaceutical company and have a giant patent portfolio. Novavax and Moderna were two examples of this, where these were companies pre-COVID, which nearly went out of business because they'd never delivered a product to market. But in their 30 years of being open, in the case of Novavax, and I think 10 or 20 years in the case of Moderna, they had built a gigantic intellectual property portfolio. So imagine if they could securitize that and take the whole portfolio, turn it into NFTs, and say, okay, you can own 5% of Moderna's patent portfolio. And if we ever make any money on it, you get royalties on the use of those patents. How about that? And all of a sudden you have a completely different way of crowdfunding. You can do the same thing with Spectrum. Like whether you're Verizon or AT&T, or you have a set amount of spectrum you've licensed from the FCC. How about you sublicense it? And then people can suddenly now buy spectrum for law. That's non-fungible because there's only one band for any particular thing. So it's actually a surprisingly big marketplace. And like all these big marketplaces, people don't get it. In the early days, like internet is email. A lot of people just equated that. And they didn't really understand that there was this massive ocean of other things you can do, because they only saw one application. So right now, NFT is Homer Pepe. And that's what it is. Okay. And they're getting crazy about it. It's inside baseball where whales are trading with each other. And Elon Musk probably bought Grimes's thing, and it was kind of like Lord of War, where he was buying his wife's artwork, just to make her feel good. Like little stuff like that is going on. And that's a bubble and it'll collapse. But NFTs are here to stay. And you have to be thinking three-dimensional chess about the whole marketplace. And that kind of takes you where you need to go.
We've been talking about earlier in the conversation, some of the competitor chains and that kind of thing. But I think something that everyone would agree with, even the Cardano haters, if you will, is what you've touched on a couple of times, and that's community. Like everyone knows that Cardano has such a strong community around it. What are your thoughts just about the Cardano community and how key that's been to its success?
Well, we invest in the community. We train people, we educate people, we create tons of content. We don't lie to people, we show them the work. We write blog posts, we write the code, everything's transparent, open. I've done more than 50 AMAs. People can ask any questions. They're legendary, those AMAs. We have the research papers there. So anytime we make a claim, like provably secure proof of stake, that's not me talking out of my ass. That's a mathematical term, and it belongs in the cryptographic world. There's a standard of proof for that. It was validated by the cryptographic community. You might not like it, but what's his name? Macho Man Randy Savage. You might not like it, but you got to accept it. So we submitted to Crypto and Eurocrypt and CCS and all these other conferences. And the fact that those papers got in when only 10% do, and we were judged by our peers, says that there's merit to the things we're saying that have been independently reviewed by people outside of the project. So real people have the capacity to understand that and see that. See, there's depth there, there's vision there, there's a goal there, and understand that this does not belong to an individual, a company, or country. This belongs to all of us. And what we're doing is constructing a digital commons. And if you want to be part of it, we're open. And it's super easy to participate. Just go to cardano.org and there's a beautiful routing mechanism, or go to our website, iohk.io. Idea Scale, we started it like Field of Dreams. 16,000 people have so far showed up and participate in Catalyst. We started with 50 people, 16,000. And this is not trivial participation, guys. It's not like just showing up and going to a website. You're like reading proposals like you're a venture capital firm or a government grant agency, commenting on them, rating them, sending emails and questions to the proposers and asking about audit standards and shit. We have like 70-year-old people who are actually there doing that, who live in Japan, or Hokkaido, be like, tell me about this t-shirt. They're having so much fun with it. Why? It's a great community. And that's where we're at today. And you know what? It's a self-reinforcing community. We don't give up ground. It's like Sparta, where they say, give them nothing. We don't lose ground. We just keep gaining ground and we keep growing. And there's a common bond there because people understand the mission, the vision, and the goals. And maximalism has absolutely no impact on us. I mean, you have all these Ethereum maximalists running around saying, you're a ghost chain. It's like, guys, it would have been really fucking trivial for me to copy the EVM because I had it in 2016. We were the first to formalize it, and we could clone all your applications and probably have lots of DeFi running today. Have I solved any legitimate problem? No. Let me go do this Ocean Island pond thing. And if I get that right, I'm going to bring in the next million developers, and those people are professionals with hindsight and a lot more money and much bigger network effects because some of them belong to Fortune 500 companies. One deal could bring me more users than your entire system has. And that probably will come sooner than people think. So yeah, great. Call me Ghost Chain, whatever the hell you want. I still move just as much value as you do. And we also support multi-asset and have over 600 issue plus metadata. So we do far more than Bitcoin does in any respect. And we're just getting started. So that's the key. You got to keep your eye on the ball, and you have to be disciplined and know where you want to go and not really think too much about the criticism. And the superpower of our community is they rise to that occasion. They take the criticism. They kind of like it. They got that chip on their shoulder, like Muhammad Ali, and they're like, yeah, I'll show you who I am. So I made medicine sick. That's what we're doing. And we keep surpassing expectations in every dimension. And we keep growing in every dimension. So it's refreshing. The other great part about the community is how welcoming they are. I mean, guys, I get mail that's sent to me, letters that are sent to me. And, some are, like, one was written on a typewriter by a 91-year-old man.
Wow.
And I just got it in the mail, and I looked at it. I was like, this is a goddamn typewriter. Who uses this stuff? And he said, my great-grandson is a big ADA fan. So I made a deal with him. I bought $5 worth of ADA from him. And I just listened to your AMAs, and he put them on. And I'm sorry, I have a hard time understanding because my hearing's not so good. But I love it. It's just breaking your heart. You're just reading this thing. You're like, wow. And I got so many thank you emails and other things from people all over the world. People send me strange things, ponchos. I got an eagle statue out there. Someone gave me a letter from Einstein. It's just crazy to see this level of passion. You don't get that for a pump and dump. You get that for a movement where people are emotionally and mentally invested in it. And here's the thing. If you have 1 million people who are emotionally, mentally, and financially invested in a concept, it's going to get done. We call that a nation state. That's what it is. Like, all these people come together and they say, let's go do it. It doesn't matter if you lose your founder. It doesn't matter if, like, one of the companies goes out of business. Look at Bitcoin. It lost Satoshi. It lost Mt. Gox. And yet it's still here. It's still going. Why? Because there's all these people that are invested emotionally, mentally, economically in the vision and the goals of that ecosystem. The only difference is the tools to participate in our system are so much better. There's a way to raise money. There's a way to vote. There's a way to be part of consensus without having a mining factory somewhere, and hundreds of millions of dollars in subsidized power and private ASICs and so forth. So because that barrier to participation is so low, you can have all kinds, from the computer scientist writing papers to the 91-year-old guy writing on a typewriter to the 70-year-old kid who recognizes me at the restaurant. It's so crazy when you see all these things, and you wouldn't believe. I remember coming into London Heathrow Airport, and I was walking to passport control, and the guy at passport control says, "Welcome to England, Mr. Hoskinson." And I hadn't handed him my passport yet. I was like, oh God. they know me at the border. Am I getting arrested? What's going on? And it's like, he was an ADA holder, it's just, it feels like Fight Club at a time. I was in Canada and I was flying back from Vancouver to America pre-COVID. And the guy checking me into the airline, Air Canada, he just kept giving me these weird looks. And I was just like, why is this guy looking at me? And then right at the end, after he tagged my bag, he's like, I love Ada. and I was like, wow, that is the Fight Clubbiest of Fight Club things I've ever seen. And then I'll never forget, I was flying United Airlines years ago, and I was flying to Chicago, and the pilot came out to drink some coffee and go to the bathroom. And I'm a global service member with United Airlines because I fly so much. And normally in global service, the pilot would come out and give you a card or something, say, thank you so much for being, a loyal customer. And he did. And he had on the back of it, by the way, Cardano is the best of all of them. And so this is the kind of stuff that whatever crap you get on Twitter, or, all the negative stuff, every day it regenerates you and refreshes you. And that community is so beautiful and united. And it's just so amazing. I'm just blown away every day by it. It warms my heart, makes me want to do this for the rest of my life.
Those are some amazing stories. I love hearing them, and especially comparing them to Fight Club, which is one of my favorite movies. And you're right. Like, even just the way you explain that, it's so like, you do not talk about the Ada. The first rule of Ada is you do not talk about Ada.
Right.
But of course, when you see Charles Hoskinson, you gotta whisper it at least. No, but in regards to, we've talked a lot about community. We've talked about Voltaire, and we've touched on some things like Project Catalyst. I've, checked in on Project Catalyst myself. And one of these things that, clicked for me, and I think a lot of people, because it was upvoted quite a bit, was this idea of running a decentralized Kickstarter. And I thought that was interesting because Project Catalyst in itself reminds me of a Kickstarter.
Right.
And I don't have a particular question here. I'm just interested in seeing something like that come to life. And I wondered if you had any thoughts on that idea in particular.
Yeah, well, what we've basically done with the treasury system is we kind of created an Investo bot, a Granto bot that kind of drives around, and it's a Kickstarter, and it gets to decide which Kickstarter projects to give money to and so forth. But it's a negotiable Kickstarter. So not only can it decide who to give money to, but it also can change the parameters of the deal. So it's like Nomic meets the Fundo bot. And it's a great idea. I mean, Kickstarter brought us a lot of things like the Oculus Rift and these things, a lot of great video games too, like Pillars of Eternity and so forth, Pathfinder, Kingmaker, and hundreds of other nifty innovations. And what's great about it is their feedback loop. So it looks at the return on intention. So money was given, people did stuff, what happened? It's not a static game where you reset the clock. What you do is when people go back for money, the system evolves and learns and grows. So actually, over time, the hypothesis is that the system gets better at capital allocations. And what we're trying to do is give it a little bit of help. So for example, the Cardano 2025 contract, we're trying to figure out how do we design something, and we're doing this with a major consultancy, and we'll publish a paper soon about it, so that we can fund like 30 or 40 entities instead of just 12 to go and build Cardano and take it to the next level and really achieve a great mission. And by voting for that, the community basically be giving consent for that governance structure to go do those hard things. So there's the consent of the governed, effectively. So Kickstarter is a great analogy, but it's Kickstarter plus a government plus many other things. And it's a very powerful model when you get it right. And it's a model with built-in feedback loops and a model that is self-amending, meaning it can change its rules, like what Subaru was doing with Nomic. And these are things that have been studied for dozens of years in systems theory and complexity theory and these domain topics in political science. But to see that at scale with billions of dollars at stake in a giant community, that's never happened before. They've always been academic concerns. And so it's super cool to see that. And this is just beginning. If we get to Bitcoin size, I mean, we legitimately could make decisions like, well, we're going to build our own satellite network or just buy Starlink and now use it as a relay. And we literally, that would be a capability. And we're even exploring business structures where the blockchain can own property, like with Cayman Star Trusts and some legislative changes in Wyoming. it may be possible to actually have a situation where they just not, instead of giving out grants, it could take equity and be a VC and these things. It's pretty crazy.
And excuse my ignorance, but is Project Catalyst essentially, the first stage of how Voltaire will work from a governance standpoint?
Yeah, because you need an incentive for people to care and participate. So you want both quality and quantity. So you want this concept of idea flow and meaningful participation. So idea flow comes from like the social physics world with Alex Pentland, and meaningful participation is like saying we want to eschew a concept called rational ignorance, where people stay ignorant of things because the value of time invested is less than the value of the knowledge. You can't really vote on forks and changes in a system if first you have shallow participation, so not a lot of depth behind the way people think about it, and also limited participation, I mean, not a lot of physical people. So the case of shallow participation was like Bitcoin, where people had strong opinions about big blocks versus small blocks and SegWit, but the vast majority of people in that debate, they really couldn't explain it to you at a cocktail party. They just were angry. And then in the case of Ethereum with the DAO hack, that was a case of limited participation where only 8%, I think, of the network participated. So maybe that was a representative sample, maybe it wasn't, but you weren't polling enough people. So the point of Catalyst is to do just that. Build a situation where decisions are made through a Socratic methodology, and people expect to invest lots of time and effort and drill down. And it's not just a thumbs up or thumbs down type of thing. So it's very, very deep, the level of participation. And build a system where the financial incentives are aligned in a way that a lot of people actually participate, like half or more of the network. If you can do those two things, then you can vote on upgrading the system. And those votes will be taken the same way as a vote for funding Furbies or any of these other things, or like really serious decisions. Okay. And that's why we structured it with the treasury system first instead of going straight to the update system, because we'd have an update system and only 5 people vote on it. Would be me and the other 4 people work on the protocol. And the other thing is you want delegative democracy. So you want liquid feedback. That's another topic that came out of Sweden and other places. And basically the idea is if you don't feel qualified, you can delegate your vote to somebody. So a whole new class of person will materialize, the expert. And he's almost like the congressman of the system, or the senator of the system. And he makes money by having an expert opinion. He says, oh, that's a crazy idea, Joe. Well, how many people in Bitcoin would delegate their authority and their voting power if they had it to Andreas Antonopoulos?
Good point.
He's an example. He wrote Mastering Bitcoin, super qualified guy. A lot of people be like, I trust him and I'm going to give him some of my voting power. Similarly, how many people in Ethereum would delegate their vote to Vitalik if they had one? So delegative democracy is another dimension, and the very same mechanism that gets you meaningful participation, so depth and breadth of participation, so more people in the system, will also give you a delegative system, and a government will naturally form, and stakeholders will naturally form. And then you need to build a bicameral model. So that you have stuff off-chain and stuff on-chain. On-chain is more stake pool operators and that thing, and off-chain is more of the ADA holders, almost like Congress and Senate. So it's not rocket science. There's 300 years of political science that exists here. It's more about the initial state of the social conditions and the interaction conditions of the game. If you design them correctly, they eventually will evolve to a point where it can make complex decisions without top-down authority. And that's what we're trying to do with Voltaire.
Charles, I want to go back to something earlier you were talking about, and that is the AMAs. And this is kind of a two-pronged question. First off, why do you find it so important? I mean, you're a busy man, but you are constantly making yourself available for these. So why is that important? Second part to that question, what is the best question you've been asked on one of those AMAs, or your favorite question?
That one's actually easier, the second question.
You can start with that.
Accountability. I cannot stand these corporate speak Fortune 500 CEOs who just like everything go through a PR agency and so forth. Like this very interview would be anathema to them. They'd be like, what are you doing? This is a nightmare. How do we recover from the damage you've done here?
You said fuck.
You said naughty words and insulted people. How will we ever work with those people? Well, maybe if you weren't such a sissy. You got to be real. Why is Joe Rogan so popular and Bill Gates not? Because they're opposite people. Bill Gates is manufactured in a laboratory. Whoever the real Bill Gates is, we don't know him. We'll never meet him. the Bill Gates you see is the guy wearing a sweater in 90-degree weather, and always is very careful, and he wears the glasses and the tie and magic of software and these types of things. He's a robot that he basically a PR agency designed and developed, and he says stuff and it sounds interesting and it sounds right, but you're always like, but what does he really believe? He doesn't really believe that. There's no genuineness about that. Now contrast him with an equally wealthy person, Elon Musk. When you look at Musk, and Musk is also an entrepreneur, billionaire, but when Musk says something, we just like believe him. It's like, yeah, we're just all going to live on Mars, and I'm going to put wires in your brain, but don't worry, we're not going to control you with it. Trust me. And the car will drive itself, and we'll finance the whole thing by just printing stock until we get enough money. But we'll be the most valuable car company in the world, like more valuable than Toyota and Ford and everything, even though we're almost bankrupt right now. And we're like, yeah, that guy's onto something. I mean, it's like fucking nuts when you actually break down what he says, he does. And Wall Street goes crazy. They're like, how is this possible? And all these short sellers just go bankrupt, and Musk just laughs at them. And then he goes to Twitter, and he's just like, SEC stands for suck Elon's cock. And my girlfriend's crazy, but I love it. He just says insane things and does insane things. And he's like, and somehow he's just popular, legitimate, and genuine to a point where people would trust this guy with inserting wires into the brain. Like people would sign up for that. He says, I'm going to go sell flamethrowers to finance a company that digs holes underground, and people buy it.
Oh yeah.
So legitimacy is the currency of a culture that is bereft of it. Be real with people and don't be afraid. Just go out there and tell them who you are. One of my favorite authors in mathematics was Paul Halmos, and he had the Paul Halmos way of doing proofs and writing. And Halmos would say, tell them what you're going to do it, and tell them what you did. Pretty simple, right? So that's what I do. I go to the AMAs. I say, this is who we are. This is what we're about. If you're a troll, I'll remind you. If you ask me to burn Ada, well, I'm going to be very angry with you. These types of things. And I'll just be real with everybody. And I now do the Kiva thing at the end of the AMAs to kind of show what it's all about. Because to me, there's always like reusability of rockets was the proof point for SpaceX. And then in Tesla, it was the success of the Model S and the Gigafactory. That was the proof point for battery powered cars. Well, similarly for us, the proof point for Cardano is, can we build a decentralized Kiva that actually has access to Ethiopia and get $1 billion or $2 billion worth of loans with that setup. So I show Kiva as, let's build that. That's why I'm building Cardano. If I can do that, so much shit has to come together, and it's inevitable for us to be able to do everything else inside the system. So the AMAs are a great way of conveying that in a very down-to-earth way, an entertaining way, and just a beautiful way of connecting with the community, and for them to know who I am. And oftentimes they don't agree with me, but they love it, and it's fun. Now, your second question was, what was my favorite question? And I love this question. I don't know why. Maybe I'm weird. A guy said, would you like to fight a horse-sized chicken or 50 chicken-sized horses?
What was your answer?
I said, always fight the larger creature. I'll take the horse-sized chicken.
I love it. I love it. Charles, this has been such a pleasure for Ulf and I. We do like to end every episode of Show Me the Crypto with the same 3-question segment called You Had Me at Crypto. So Ulf's going to ask you those.
Sure.
All right, Charles. So this first question, normally we're asking to someone, and you might be one of those guys who's the answer. So it's interesting to ask someone who could be that guy, but in your case, who's your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
That's a really good one. It's just like, I follow so many people over Twitter. I'd say that probably Elon Musk is my favorite tweeter, and he also does crypto stuff now. So I guess I can technically cheat and do that. I really also enjoy Amin Gunseer. He's kind of like an academic troll at times, and he's got Avalanche and all these other projects. And I just really love the Twitter fights that the guy gets into, and some of the things that he tweets out. But there's a lot of personalities in the space. It's hard to pick one. I mean, there's just whatever, any given Sunday, I guess. If you put a gun to my head, I'd say Musk. Why not?
I think he's my favorite too. So,
I mean, the Doge meme of Musk holding up Doge. It's just, come on, who comes up with that?
or when they started stacking it and it was
Yeah.
Elon Musk holding Gene Simmons, holding Snoop Dogg, holding the Doge. So yeah. But all right, question 2. What
there is one of our community members that I always look forward for what he does. So every time I do an AMA, I think it's Eye of the Tiger or whatever it is. He does these 2-minute videos of the best of Charles for the AMA, and he stitches them together almost like a parody video. And they're so
nice.
good. They're so good. Like the horse-sized chicken was one of the things in there. While I was wearing a yukata, it was so well done. So some of our community members are actually my favorite, like Rick McCracken and others. They always have these beautiful tweets.
Nice. All right, question 2. What will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
When I did my course, the Bitcoin or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Crypto, at the very last lecture, I did predictions because at the time Bitcoin was $100. And I was like, what would it take for Bitcoin to get to $1,000? What would it take for Bitcoin to get to $10,000? And it was just unbelievable that it got there. A lot of people believe that it'll be at $100,000 or even $1 million. And I don't know if I believe that because it's really hard to go beyond $1 trillion. I mean, 10 trillion, 100 trillion. It's an ecological catastrophe if that happens. The dynamics will work in a way that it'll consume more electricity than America does, and there's no reason for that. So I think what will end up happening is that Bitcoin will regress a bit, and it'll find a stable state in a reasonable value band, and it'll eventually get replaced by a higher utility cryptocurrency. Now, if the question was reformatted to what is the total market capitalization for all cryptocurrencies, winners and losers, I'm very bullish. I think that will become 10 to 20 trillion in the next 10 years. But I wouldn't want to bet that Bitcoin is the value driver there. I think the dominance will continue to decrease as competition increases. Remember, the U.S. government could decide to release USD coin, and that alone would have a 28 trillion, $30 trillion market cap right out the gate. So how is Bitcoin larger than that? If that's tokenized.
Oh, we could just choose not to count that. But
yeah, exactly. Right. Oh, yeah. Not choose not to count that.
All right. Part 2 of that question. What will the price of ADA be 10 years from now?
If I could predict that, I wouldn't be building shit. I'd be trading. I don't trade. I don't know how these markets work, man. I really don't.
It's a for fun question, but fair enough. All right. Question 3. What is the most underrated coin or project in crypto?
Other than ADA.
Yeah.
That one's easy. That's Ergo. Ergo should be a top 10 coin or at least a top 20. It's an amazing piece of technology. And it's made by this brilliant Russian kid who used to work for me named Alex Cherpanoy. And they got everything. They got Sigma protocols and non-outsourceable puzzles and all kinds of cool ideas there. Ergo script is a beautiful language. It's based on Sigma protocols. And for some damn reason, it just never really took off. So maybe Ergo will be a big thing in a few years, but it's like a special undiscovered project. And I have a soft spot for it because they wrote the whole thing in Scala, and it's based on something called ScoreX, which I worked on with Alex before we launched Cardano. And then he went off and did that. And Alex has been in the space forever. He was an NXT core developer. And then he worked on another project, and then he created ScoreX, and then ScoreX was used to launch Waves, and then a few other cryptocurrencies, and then Ergo came from that family in the second edition of ScoreX.
Charles, this has been an absolute pleasure, a highlight of our show for both Alpha and myself. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you so much, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.